everybody, and welcome to another edition, another version of Bill Roden on Sports. I'm Bill Roden in an undisclosed location up north. Just saw a couple of deer pass by my doorstep. I resisted the urge to shoot them.
Good for you, Bill.
Bambi all over again. Great summer day, and I'm here with my friend and my co-host, the great Jamal Murphy. Murph, what's going on down there?
Not much. It's a very hot, sweltering Brooklyn day for the Brooklyn week. It's been pretty hot the last few days, 90s, humidity. So it's air conditioning time, pretty much.
Yeah.
But before we get started, let me give you a word from our sponsor, of course, Bros Pod, brought to you as always by Bet Online. Bet Online is your number one source for all your betting needs. Get the latest odds, lines, and matchup reports for baseball, boxing, golf, and more. Bet Online continues to be the fastest and easiest way to place your wagers, including live betting and your favorite casino and card games available to play right from your phone. So head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and get in on the action. Remember to use the promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online, where the game starts. Back to you, Bill.
All right, let me place a bet right now from my mobile phone.
Yes, I lost $10. I lost $10 on who was it? I think it was Eubanks, but we'll get to that later. We'll get to Chris.
Yeah, we'll get to Eubanks later. Bet on him?
I bet $10 on him. It was fun. Speaking of betting, and we were talking about how easy it is, and it was like a live game bet. So he had won the first set, and he still had pretty good odds. Like he was still favored to lose the match. So I was like, oh, let me bet $10 to win $13 or something like that. So I bet on him, and of course, it was looking good for a couple sets, but didn't quite work out.
Yeah, I'm having connection issues, but we'll keep trying. So I guess the hot news of the week, at least as it affects me, was the New York Times decided it was going to shutter its sports section,
right,
and replace it with The Athletic, a subscription-based thing that I'm sure many of you have subscribed to. They have not turned a profit yet, but the Times bought it last year, I think, for about $550 million. So I think, like I said, I worked at the Times for 34 years. And I must say, I still have friends who are there, great Ken Belson, and great Kurt Streeter, the columnist who's been on our show a couple times. So, it was quite stunning. And, of course, The Athletic is a totally non-union shop. And I know, a lot of people are saying that this is an effort at union busting, that because the Times is a union shop. So they're going to basically get rid of, or at least redeploy a staff of from 35 to 40 people, writers and editors, and then bring in a staff of non-union workers. And I know that will be a fight. And before I get into personal feelings, I'm just wondering, people do things in power. They do it just because they can do it and they get away with it. And I'm just wondering if the Times national reporters, if other sections of the paper will unite behind the sports section, because it's really not about sports. It's about, them potentially busting the union. And I know if you're a New York Times national reporter, you're probably thinking, oh, no, there's no way they do that to us. And if you're a foreign writer, oh, there's no way they do that. And people count on that, to weaken your resistance, thinking, well, that's sports. There's no way they get rid of the national desk. There's no way they get rid of the foreign desk. But if they get away with this, they get away with anything. For all they know, they could replace the national desk with like Politico, or replace you could replace anybody. Anybody could be replaced.
Right.
And it would be great. I don't see it happen if you had your Maureen Dowds and all your influential reporters basically threatening to strike. I know it's probably not going to help because this was a money move, and they said, well, we spent $500 million on this, and I don't know if the executive editor and those people in the newsroom were down with this because these are reporters,
Right.
even though they're executives, they're reporters, and you realize that when you make a move like this, if it goes unopposed, the higher ups, the bean counters, and they're just look at the bottom line. They could do anything. So I'll be. It would be great to see some type of releases. Maybe next week we could have Ken Belson on the show. Ken Belson covered the NFL. I think he was a business writer before he got to the sports section.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure Ken will be fine. But he's also I think one of the union leaders, and he's made some pretty strong statements about vowing to fight this. So maybe we could have him on next week to talk about that and bring in our friend Kurt Streeter,
right,
who's a Sports of the Times columnist, did fabulous work, and Kurt is going to be fine, but maybe we have him on, get his reaction. I actually spoke to him last week in Seattle at the Baseball All-Star game at the Swingman Classic. I forgot we could talk a little bit about that.
mm-hmm.
This was the HBCU Swingman Classic. Ken Griffey, kind of one of the co-signers of it. The MLB Players Association Foundation supported it, and I spoke to Kurt out there, so we'll have him on. But just a word about that. I know maybe I'll talk. I'm not sure how much to say.
I mean, I would ask just if you could explain that union angle for me, like the union issue, because I don't quite understand.
Well, in other words, when I was at the Times, and the Times is a union shop.
Mm-hmm.
To work there, you belong to the union, and as a union member, you have protections, you have rights, you have health care. You have a lot of stuff. I mean, it's you benefit by being in the union,
right?
And the Athletic is totally non-union. None of the, I don't know, 300. I'm not sure how many people they got. It's a non-union shop. So now what that means is that you will now have a sports section that will be made up of non-union people, which means maybe you don't have to pay them as many benefits. There's not the same protection. It's just, if you were into unions, it's not a good thing.
Okay.
It's not a good look.
Right.
And it sets a bad precedent. If you believe in unions, as Joe Biden, the president, is a big union guy. And, you see what's happening now with the Actors Guild. They
right.
voted today. We're doing this on Thursday. The Screen Actors Guild voted to go on strike in support of the writers because they're concerned about AI and benefits and all that. So basically, unionism is in the air. And I've always, actually, when I was at the Afro, that was not a union shop. Ebony was not a union shop. In fact, when somebody talked about getting us unionized, Mr. Johnson was going to fire the entire staff, because some people do not like unions because
right.
they have protections and rights and all that. So that's the union part of that is disbanding the sports section that was all union and replacing it with non-union farming, basically subcontracting
right.
A website to do your sports. And we had a lot of people covered the NFL, covered NBA, and like Kurt wrote columns, and now it's going to be totally different. And the Athletic, I'm not sure if you subscribe to it.
I do.
They do good work.
Yeah, I subscribe to it. They do. I can't say I read it every day.
Yeah.
But when there's an article that sparks my interest, I read it. Now, like you said, the Times bought the Athletic a year or so ago.
About a year ago.
Do you think that people knew this was coming at that point?
Yeah, I mean I talked to Kurt and guys then because the handwriting was on the wall. It was just when you're not going to spend that kind of money, and I mean they were talking. Well, we'll still have our sports staff, and the Athletic will do its thing, and you do your thing, and we have the New York Times journalism standards. I mean, I think they have some guys on the Athletic who are working with DraftKings, and it's a whole mismatch of stuff that the Times would not tolerate. That's common practice at the Athletic. I think even sourcing of stories is a whole different journalistic enterprise. But I think the Times figured, well, we spent this money and we're going to use them. So we'll see. But yeah, they cover sports, but even they had layoffs. They lay off about maybe 3% of their staff, and they said no longer will they have each team have a beat writer, and and I guess that gets to the larger question, Jamal, and I guess it's something that we all should think about is, and I've been thinking about, how do we now cover sports? I mean, do we have to make an adjustment in the way that we cover sports? You watch a lot of sports on TV and you follow online. And so people say, well, why do we need game stories? People have already seen it. When they look at the sports section, what's new? And, the Athletic, maybe you should be a section that just basically breaks news, constantly breaking news and doing investigations and stuff like that. I do think that one of the distinctive things is being a columnist, because that is one thing that no matter what you see on TV, you see the game, the columnist is distinctive. It's a distinctive voice. It's a distinctive take. It's like Stephen A. Smith.
Right.
He's not saying anything that people don't know, but it's, heavily opinionated. And that's what sports is. It's unlike the national desk or the foreign desk where you cover world events. Sports is a lot of debate, a lot of arguments and perspective. And I think columnists can give you that kind of distinction, that distinctive voice. But
no, I mean, yeah, it's interesting because I'm thinking about it. When all this, with all these layoffs, all these newspapers getting rid of sports sections. Also, I think the LA Times also did something similar where they're not going to tell game stories.
Yeah, no game with the LA Times, no game stories, no box scores, things like that. Basically, enterprise investigation, and they're going to keep and columnist. But yeah. So, but what was your question? Yeah.
No, I mean, so the sports. I mean, sports is at an all-time, it seems like an all-time high or boom now. I mean, there's so much money made off of sports. It's weird that papers are saying, well, we don't even want to deal with sports anymore. But I guess that's not what's happening. Like you said, they're subcontracting it out.
Well, yeah, it's not like the New York Times won't have sports.
Right.
They just won't have their traditional sports section. They're now going to leave the dirty work to the Athletic because y'all do it.
Right. But even the Athletic, like you said, so not every team will have a beat writer. So it's like, because more people have access to the games now, and I guess back in the day when papers, the history of newspapers, everybody couldn't see what was going on, and they were totally describing it. That's what it is now? It's like people don't need box scores and they don't need game stories.
Because they already got the box scores
from wherever.
They already know. They probably saw it
on their phone.
See it online. And remember, every team, each team now has their own social media department.
Right.
You know, I think of our friend Cliff Brown. You know, Cliff, a longtime veteran journalist, was once my colleague at the Times. He now works for the Baltimore Ravens. And after a Ravens game, you will then see Cliff's story. They have 3 or 4 people, and they write the game stories. You can click on the Ravens website. You can click on the Yankees website. You can click on their site, and they tell their story. they write the game stories they want to write.
Right.
You know, and that did not happen years ago. I mean, every team had a PR staff, which they still do, but now to have their own basically in-house, you know, newspaper outlet, you know, where they do the game stories and all that kind of stuff. So that's been a big change. And you're right. I think interest in sports is probably at an all-time high. There's betting and fantasy and all that, but how does that relate to journalism? You know, how does that relate to how can that translate to journalism? Because sports is popular. Those of us who cover it, are we as popular? You know, because are people going to subscribe? Are they going to? Are we telling them something they don't know, that they don't already see? So that is, I think, the challenge. You know, right now I'm at ESPN at Anscape, and Anscape is a somewhat, you know, before that we were undefeated, somewhat of a unique vertical, in that we deal almost exclusively with the intersection of racism and culture.
Right.
And that's something that a lot of these newspaper sections, which, by the way, you know, as I pointed out before, is largely, sports writing is largely white. It's largely dominated by white men.
Right.
And almost by definition, they're not going to write about the same stuff that we're writing at Anscape.
Right.
Even at ESPN, you know, we have a particular lane where we talk about racism and culture, HBCUs. So it's kind of a unique vertical. And I'm thinking that had a lot of these newspapers not insisted on having these all white staffs, you know, maybe they could have avoided this. You know, there's a huge, you know, we talk about baseball. You know, 30% of the league is Latin, Spanish speaking.
Right.
And I don't think any of the mainstream outlets, the Times, anybody, really focused on that.
Right.
You know, I mean, you know, so again, it gets to the question of how do we adjust? How do we shift our coverage? I mean, a friend of mine who was at Anscape, is now at another outlet, was saying, well, you know, the Times, which had done a lot of distinguished work. I mean, we had 3 columnists who won Pulitzers. You know, Red Smith, Dave Anderson won Pulitzers. John Branch won a Pulitzer for outstanding feature writing. And but the question is, has there been great work as of late? You know, so you kind of constantly have to evolve, and that's been the question. Even at Anscape, you know, I write columns every week, but you're thinking, okay, how do we do that in a unique and entertaining way that's become more visual? You know, like podcasting, right? Podcasting never existed.
Right.
I think we were kind of on that first wave of podcasts. We were back at CBS,
right,
before they, anyway. You know, so you're constantly evolving. So I guess our question is, what will we know 15 years from now that we should know now? Yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, even the columnist, right? Because you know, that's opinionated writing. Will that be able to sustain itself in the future? Because we know one of the things is and you hear it talked about the diminishing attention span of people nowadays. They don't want to read long investigative reporting, articles. They barely want to read articles. There's so much clickbait now where it's like, aggregation, just like you said, is it just breaking news? Like the people that are breaking news, those are the ones who are prospering right now in terms of, within the media. That's what people seem to want the most, rather than uh, you know an article, a thought out article where people actually have to sit down and read it,
Right.
which less and less people seem willing to do. Nowadays you click on an article on the internet and it'll tell you ahead of time, oh, 2-minute read, 5-minute read, and that's and
And
we
some
know.
of it you could actually listen to it,
Right,
you
right,
know, which in fact, come to think of it, that's probably what I should do is start saying, I'll read the column, you know. Um, but no, you're right. I mean, what's sustainable? And I guess that's what you have to figure out. I think being ridiculous is sustainable.
yeah,
If you're just bizarre,
yeah,
do something that, like the idea of the car wreck, you
right,
know, people are always attracted to the car wreck. So what's the journalistic equivalent of the car wreck? What is that? Um, so yeah, man. I mean, the one thing is this: sports is very popular, but how do we stay popular with it? How do we in journalism stay popular with it? So I guess that's where we are. And I'm more on the loss of the sports section because I spent 34 years there.
right,
Um, and shucks, when I first got to the Times, we had like four or five columnists: Dave Anderson, George Vesey, Ira Burkow, then me, Harvey Arrington. So we had five columnists, and and we did a lot of game coverage.
right.
You know, so you know, but that was then, and this is now. I mean, we also had typewriters. I mean, what would you do now? You had brought a typewriter to a game. They're like, what?
What?
What are you doing? You had to write your story, type it up, and then uh, have FedEx. Western Union. I mean, the whole technology of everything has changed. So
Right.
you got to kind of change with it. So I don't know, man. I'm just I feel for I feel for all of us, but particularly the people there who are being stationed in other parts of the paper,
Right.
and hopefully everybody finds a good landing spot. So
Right. Right. Yeah. No, I agree with you. It's a medium and it's every journalist in this space has to figure it out, has to figure out, the best way to cover sports now and also make a living from it.
yeah, yeah,
What's because it does depend on what's popular and what people really want. I mean, that's just the way it is. You're doing a service for the people. So we need to figure out what the people want and how they want it.
yeah. What and that's exactly it. What do they want? How do they consume it? Remember people used to just watch TV. And I remember people said, yeah, now they consume content on their phone and all that. And when you're sitting in these meetings, it kind of goes over your head. Like, I'm still watching on my TV. Well, now guess what? I'm watching stuff on my phone. You
Right.
know,
Right. Right.
so yeah, that's the $1 million question. As you submit your freelance pieces,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
what do people want? So that's what I don't know. $1 million question, but
Yeah. We'll work on it. We'll work
yeah,
on it.
people. Here he is.
What's up?
Hey,
What's up?
what's going on, man?
I'm good.
The great Khalid Green. What's happening, man?
What's going on? We're live. We're live on YouTube. Just so everybody knows.
Okay.
Um,
Shout out to YouTube.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
We got a special guest friend of the program, Khalid Green, in the house, former NBA scout. He's an author. He's currently a director at the AAU powerhouse, New Heights Basketball, based in New York City, based in Brooklyn. What's up, man? Thanks for joining us.
Peace to the brothers. How are y'all?
Right. And also the co-host of the great podcast Up Next.
Absolutely.
With my co-host, Jamal Murphy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Moonlight.
I got his right arm, you got his left.
Yeah, man. We were just talking about how the New York Times just shut down the sports section.
Oh, really? I didn't know. I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, well, see, and that's exactly what we're talking about. How, it was cataclysmic to a lot of journalists, but the other people say, "Oh, really? That didn't know," which is part of the problem. To say that a tree falls in the forest and didn't really fall. It's like anonymous. Well,
when the great Bill Rhoden left, I left too. So.
Boom. Speaking of that, I'm just curious because we want, we thought it'd be great to have you come on. We're running behind because we were bemoaning. We talk about the time, but one of the things we were going to get to was Wembanyama. I want to talk about AAU, and Jamal said he was able to see you act.
Yeah.
Maybe we can start there with AAU because this is the summertime is AAU time. More. What are you doing this summer, man? What's your schedule like?
We just came back from Peach Jam in Augusta. My last weekend of coaching is this weekend coming up, which is the live period, and we'll be playing at Sportica, New Jersey.
What is that?
So it's basically a live period. College coaches, I think it's the last weekend that they can come out during the summer. And the location that we happen to play at this weekend is Sportica. But there's other locations too. Like there's an event that my friend and OG Gary Charles is doing in Las Vegas. There's other events, but we just happen to be going to the one in Jersey at Sportica complex.
Oh, okay.
So this was this week or last week really was like to me was like a big like a kind of a big event. I mean that Peach Jam is the biggest event AU basketball event there is, but it felt to me it was even bigger this year because the fact that now like all the games are streaming. So I was watching it like I was watching summer league basketball. Like I was just watching it like instead of other things,
Correct.
And then also ESPN and NBA TV covered a bunch of the games, all different age groups, 15, 16s and 17s. You of course are coaching the 15 and unders, which is like kind of like the beginning or ground floor of Peach Jam.
Right.
But it's widely covered. Coaches are, what's that? That's like what do you call it? Rising sophomores.
Yeah.
So you got
those kids that I coached were in 9th grade, all of them, and they'll be they'll be going into their sophomore year in the fall.
So what was it? I mean, you've been at Peach Jams many times, but what did it feel different this year? And how does this AAU scene, how does it feel different this year, and is it moving in a different direction, you think?
Yeah, well, for me, this was my first time being a head coach in EYBL period.
Oh, okay.
So prior to this, about 2 years ago, I was assistant with the 9th grade team, and we did not make the Peach. We actually finished 1 point short of making the Peach. So for those that don't know, I think we started off with about 49, 50 teams that participated in the actual EYBL, and we go to about 2 to 3 sessions in different states. And based on your points and win total, you can or cannot make the peach. So we happen to be one of 20 that made the peach, and unfortunately we lost by. I mean, we didn't make the quarterfinals by literally 1 point. But I'm very proud of our production. We lost 1 game by 1 point, and we only lost 2 games, and we won 3 overall. So success. It was successful. We wanted to win the whole thing, but only one team can do it. This year happened to be CP3, and which is obviously the program run by Chris Paul. He actually was on the bench with them during the peach.
Wow.
And I think that's the most exciting part of it. One of the most exciting parts of it is that, you see these big time legends that are actually involved with their programs. Like, we happen to go in the tunnel. I saw Russell Westbrook. And then, obviously our 16 and under team, like you mentioned on NBA TV, they competed against LeBron's team, and LeBron wasn't just chilling. He was actually coaching and really into it. Right. So I think that's the fun part. I think that's the part that the kids really can. Those memories last forever with the kids.
So that is kind of fascinating. So CP3 and LeBron and Westbrook, they all sponsor AAU teams.
Yes.
So
what's Westbrook's team?
Why not?
Okay.
Team Why Not.
Mm-hmm.
So where are they from?
LA, I believe.
LA. So and LeBron's where's his from? I
believe that's a good question. I know they're called Strive for Greatness. So you got to figure they're either from Ohio or LA.
And then CP3 is from North Carolina.
Carolina, yes.
So
and
now
we actually played them twice and lost to them twice in overtime.
Wow. In your age group.
Yes, my age group.
So now, and this kind of so they essentially own their team.
Yes, they whatever they had to do with Nike, obviously they're endorsed by Nike, and they probably set it up in their contract that they're gonna have, a team or a program. So here we are.
So what's the difference between so Nike probably sponsors the team?
Correct.
Well, they sponsor every team that's in EYBL, right?
Yeah, so every team that's in EYBL on the EYBL circuit is a Nike team.
Right. And what does EYBL stand for?
Elite Youth Basketball League.
Okay. And so that's basically a Nike sponsorship thing.
Correct.
Now, does Under Armour have its thing and Adidas have their thing?
Correct. There's different, they definitely have different circuits. So there's an Under Armour, there's an Adidas, and there's Nike. And based on, what I've heard, Nike is the creme de la creme of them all.
Right. So
yeah, they're the only one who was on NBA TV and ESPN.
Yeah.
With Nike?
Yeah.
Unbelievable. So, you wrote a book about this, about this whole you think how, and although this was just your first year as a head coach, you've been involved in this space for a long time. Are parents still nuts? Are parents more sophisticated?
I would say yes and yes. Parents are just as nuts. A lot of these parents see their little Tyrone or whoever as the end all. Once he gets a little bit of acclaim, they feel like he could be the next LeBron, he could be the next Russell Westbrook, and it doesn't take it only takes a little bit of light for the exaggerations to come out. But the parents are passionate. They're passionate about their children. I think there's a positive to it because they get to see their kids develop in real time, and I can't knock their passion. You just got to keep it tamed, and they need to keep the right people around them. But overall, the kids are doing something positive, so they need to be commended for that.
What did you think of the Ja Morant thing? I mean, I guess the stereotype is that, well, AAU has almost been used as a pejorative. Well, that's an AAU mentality. Right. And like anything else, there may be a kernel of truth, but you don't have the whole NBA being John Morant, or else there would be no NBA. You don't have everybody losing their minds.
Right.
So, what do you think there's any connection between John Morant and the culture, the basketball or the culture of celebrity?
I think the culture. I think John Morant really is not what he's been doing is really more indicative of the hip hop culture than the basketball culture. And in some ways those two intertwine. We know that. But the hip hop culture, or I should say the drill culture, and I wouldn't even call it the hip hop culture because hip hop, started out, with some positive aspects of it. But the drill music culture is what sounds like he's, embodying when he's, holding up the guns and, doing all this other stuff that has nothing to do really with hip hop. It really has to do with drill culture. And drill culture, what I mean by drill culture, that's the shoot a nigga, shoot a nigga, shoot a nigga culture that you see on rap music. And that music is being financed by people that don't even look like John Morant. So that's a whole nother story and that's a whole nother context.
Wow.
That needs to be talked about.
Yeah, I like to dive deeper into that because you're right. You got non-black people, just like with hair care products and all that,
Right.
black people not controlling their own thing. That's why I asked you, did LeBron and Westbrook and those guys own their own companies? I have a young rodent fellow, I do this fellowship, and she's working on a story about, Rihanna just announced that she was stepping down as CEO of a company, and that she named this white woman as her, although she still owns 1% of her company. But then we start getting to a dive of how many big black owned companies are there, and what's the how do you keep from selling out?
Right.
And that's why I was wondering if it seemed like if you were an NBA player, that's one thing you could own. You could own your own AAU team.
Yeah, you would
You're
hope
just saying
that.
it's like Nike, right? I mean, you don't really own it. Nike kind of owns it, right?
Well, you would hope that, like maybe why not is a 501c3 that
Yeah.
hopefully, some of his people that look like him are the CEO or the executive directors of. That would be my hope.
Yeah.
But I couldn't answer that as far as, who is behind the scenes of some of these programs. I know the coaches all, from what I've seen, are all black, and that's usually how it is. But
Right.
behind the scenes, I'm not prepared to say I know. But what I will say is that at least LeBron, from what we know of some of the moves that he's made, has kept people around him that look like him that he's empowered.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, Jamal, we want to, we as we move into Great White Hopeism, Jamal, he was watching, he was watching TV. You were talking about, right, Jamal? Because I did this whole thing about Jokic, and not dredging up, other things. But who was this guy you were talking about, Jamal? You were making a point. We didn't develop it because we had to get on with the show. But you were saying if you think, you were talking about look out for this because it's coming.
Yeah, so there's watching the 16s. Speaking of the 16s and New Heights, where Khalid is, hit the 16 and unders. They were actually on, I think, with NBA TV. And one of the reasons was because they were playing a team from Maine who has this. Remember, 16s are going to be juniors in high school this coming season. They're playing a kid from Maine, a team from Maine that has a kid named Cooper Flagg, and you'll hear about him. If you haven't heard of him already, you'll hear about him really soon. And he's probably going to be the next big name in the next year or two in probably the next couple of years in college basketball is when he gets there. And the thing, I brought up the Great White Hope. I was like, because here we talked about Jokic, and he's European, he's not American born, but this kid is an American born white kid, about 6'8", can do it all. And the thing with the Great White Hopes is usually they're pretty damn good, right? To begin with, they just get they become the greatest of all time, right? But so I'm telling you, he's coming. So if all the people who are weary about the Jokic talk, get ready for some even more enthusiastic talk about this kid Cooper Flagg when he gets to the big time. I know you had to see him play. You saw your new Heights team play against him. What do you think of him, Khalid?
Yeah, I was at that game. I was impressed, quite honestly.
Right.
What I was impressed about was, one, he's 6'8",
right,
but he has a very good feel for the game. He let the game, like, he seemed like he was intentionally and methodically getting his teammates involved. But then when it was time to take over, he took over. And what makes him, I guess, what separates him from the average 6'8" kid is that his skill level is very high. He can, he's one of those big men he's 6'8", but he can dribble low.
right,
He's fluid with his dribble, has a little wiggle, and is actually athletic.
right.
And he's a competitor, because, we had kids that were breathing down his neck and making the game physical for him, but he never wavered. So, is he going to be the next big thing? I think he will be for white America for sure. And but I don't know if he's going to be an all-time great, but he certainly is from what I've seen, he's certainly special for 16 under EYBL, and probably is going to be like that, like you said, Jamal, going into college. If he goes to college,
True.
He'll be one of those ones you have to look out for.
What are the options now, Khalid? I know you said he's going to be the big. He'll be the big thing in white America. Well, that means they're going to make him the big. They're going to invent. But what are the options now? You say if he goes to college, what are the options now for a very talented high school player? What are the different options now?
I mean, a kid like that is gonna, he's gonna have all types of options that are thrown at him. He's gonna have the ability to make money if he's not already making money right now. He can go to the G League. He can go to OTE, which is Overtime Elite in Atlanta, Georgia. He can go to overseas. So he'll have a lot of options, and then he'll obviously be able to make money off of his name, image, and likeness. Like I said, if he's not already doing it.
You know where he's gonna go, Bill. Yeah, take a guess where you think he'll go.
Duke.
Yes,
Where
correct.
Duke?
Correct.
Yeah, I can.
That's the leader. That's the leader in the clubhouse, from what I hear.
I can see that coming. They certainly ran every game that I saw him play.
Maybe he'll be the one that goes to Howard or HBCU. So I'm gonna do something that's totally out the box.
Yeah, maybe he'll try to pull some affirmative action that no longer exists.
I'm gonna go to HBCU and take them to like the Sweet 16.
Right.
The hype. Man, people would just go out of their fucking minds, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, you were in the building. What kind of fanfare was he getting in the building? We'll preface this, and you said it already. Like, the kid is impressive. The kid was scoring. He was putting up like 35 points, 20 rebounds, 10 blocks. 6 assists. Like, he was literally doing everything.
Yeah, he was hoping for sure.
Yeah. So, but what was the atmosphere inside? Like, was there like clamoring for him? Like, was there stuff that annoyed you, even though he's great?
No, because I wasn't really paying attention to it. I was really rooting one of my guys, Chris Jeffries.
Yeah, he did his thing, I have to say.
Yeah, Christian Jeffries, who definitely did his thing. I think, out of all the people that guarded him, Cooper Flagg all week, he did the best job. But when I was walking through the crowd, you definitely heard the crew from Maine that was boisterous and rooting him on, and giving him the energy he needed. But it didn't bother me. I knew that was coming, and like I said, it's going to be way more coming once his name gets out there.
No question. No question. What about
was his team all white?
Just in terms.
Huh?
Yes.
Yeah. No, they had
they had one guy.
They had a young brother on the team. They had one young brother on the team. I was gonna say something, but they had one little young brother on the team.
Well, remember the team's from Maine. Remember that?
Yeah, they're from Maine.
I know.
And one other interesting thing, the other big name in his age group was I think Cameron Boozer, who is Carlos Boozer's son.
Mm-hmm.
Carlos Boozer has two sons. I think they're the same age, but one of them's like 6'10", one of them's like 6'3", right?
Yeah, around that. Yeah, around that. Yeah.
So he has a guard. He has two sons. One's a big man who's like, people are saying he's number 1 or 2 next to Cooper Flagg in the nation in his age group, and he has a son who's a point guard, same age, who's like top 20.
Yeah,
so, and they won the whole thing.
Yeah, they play for Knight Riders. So they just went back to back because they won the 9th grade EYBL championship last year, and this year they won the 10th grade EYBL championship. So he's another young prospect that is on the horizon. He probably might go to Duke with Cooper Flagg.
No, I heard is that they want Cooper Flagg to reclassify, right? So then he'll go to Duke next year, and then so Boozer's kid can go the following year. That's it, because the Boozer kid is actually still only 15.
Yeah, and he's a killer. So basketball is the game that keeps giving. These prospects are going to keep coming.
Right.
And like you mentioned, some of them will be coming from overseas, and here we have 2 that are coming from North America.
Yeah. So what you said that this is your last week. How are you gonna spend the rest of the summer?
So gonna get with
we got a bunch of up next episodes.
Yeah, we got a bunch of up next episodes. I got to do a little more promoting of my book. I'm gonna do a hit free game, and maybe Harlem Week with it. And for those that want to follow, go to freegame.7 on Instagram. And then I'm gonna take a vacation, Bill. I gotta get away.
Yeah, you gotta take a break, man.
Lay up on some sand for a minute.
You gotta do something non-basketball, though. You'll probably be thinking of basketball.
Absolutely.
I know you've been busy. Did you catch any summer league? Did you catch Victor Wembanyama?
I did catch I didn't catch a whole game, but I caught the second game where he had a monster dunk, and I saw him cross somebody over for a pullback mid-range jump shot. So I think the hype is real. I think he's going to be a hell of a player. He somehow went to San Antonio, which seems really scripted to me, but I think he's going to be. He has all the makings of somebody who's going to be a great player.
Yeah,
you said scripted like Patrick Ewing and the Knicks in the frozen envelope, the frozen.
Yeah. Some smoke and mirrors in this game here and there.
And it just so happens Popovich signs a 5-year, $80 million extension.
Of course.
Right after they get Wembanyama, so they worked out for Pop too.
Right.
Unbelievable.
Rich keep getting richer.
I know. That's another podcast.
Right.
The rich keep getting richer.
Right.
Hey man, the last thing, and it kind of gets back to Boozer and LeBron. I find it fascinating that you've now got this second or maybe even third generation of NBA players whose dads played in the league. Now you begin seeing their sons. I'm not sure what the question is, but is that a benefit? I guess will these kids be better? Clearly, usually the first generation is a hungry generation.
Correct.
And the second generation, I was this guy Eric Green was a tight end with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and his son was a first round draft pick in baseball, and he was talking about when Eric Green grew up kind of tough, in South Carolina, and he said my kids, man, they live in this 50,000 square foot, whatever is a ridiculous number of square foot, because I was asking about hunger, and he said, well, hunger, they don't have to be hungry, He's basically doing it by skill, And I was just wondering, what are the characteristics when you see this second generation, like the Boozer's kid, LeBron's kid? Clearly, they grew up fairly comfortable. What do they have? Maybe that's an advantage.
I mean, sometimes those guys have chips on their shoulder too, because they don't want to be known as LeBron's kid or Boozer's kid. They want to create their own identity. So it may not be the same chip on the shoulder of somebody that comes out the hood and has to eat soup with a fork, but it is a situation where they want to create their own identity and want to be their own man in their own space, and they don't want to hear you're only nice, or you only got ranked because you're LeBron's kid, or you only got ranked or got to this camp because of this. So, like, for example, Carmelo Anthony's son, Cayenne, for a while he's had the stigma, in certain circles that, he's only getting certain things because he's Carmelo's kid. But if you watch him, he's gotten a lot better, right before our eyes. Like he has a different game than Melo, but he could shoot the hell out of the ball right now. He's 6'4", and he's a really good player. So, sometimes these kids, will he be a Hall of Famer like his father? Who knows? But I know one thing: he's good enough to play on the circuit, and he's putting up numbers, and he's going to go to a college on his own merit.
Yeah, that's good to hear. Hey, Khalid, I guess this great Khalid Green. We began this conversation talking about the New York Times shuttering the sports section and how the whole thing of covering sports has changed. Sports sections are shrinking and all that. But hearing you talk, the one thing that has not changed is that the supply of black muscle has not. That's as what's the word? That's as right and supple as ever. That has not changed. I think the pool of talent is like, I don't know if you call it endless, but I mean, there's a deep pool of talent.
Yes, and it's not going to change. Like, we are the best in this space, which is why they didn't want us to be in this space for a long time, which is why they prohibited us from playing in basketball, baseball, football, golf, and other spaces. They've known that for years, and we've known that for years. So that is not going to change. I think what needs to change is us controlling the resources and putting more of our people around what I call the diamonds of the hood. Some more black accountants, some more financial planners that are black, some more agents. That's the part that I think we need to grow and expand. And we need to do it ourselves, because they're not gonna, as we know in history, nothing is gonna come without a demand. So it's up to us to, create our own leverage and empower our own.
Yeah, no, well said. And that was why I asked about LeBron and Westbrook and those guys, the CP3, because it seems like they're in a position. I don't know the structure of this AAU space, but it seems like we can control this space. Whatever control means, it seems like we have the resources to control at least that space.
Absolutely. I mean, it with every industry, it just comes down to us believing in ourselves and not thinking that their ice is colder than our own.
Well,
I think
yeah.
it always comes down to that.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother show.
Yes, sir.
The white man's ice is colder.
Right. I believe in my ice though.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So freegame.7, man. Pick up the book, Free Game.
That's right.
on
Buy the book.
Amazon.
Yeah, man. Hey, well, listen, this has been great, Khalid. Thanks so much, man. Look
Yes,
forward to
sir.
seeing
Thank
you.
y'all.
Now, is your this gets into another thing, but I know that you were doing something with Sahar about the Olympics thing. Is that still going on?
No. I think I didn't have the time to put into it. So I think she was doing it in another, like I think at a park. I haven't heard much about it. I don't know if you have.
No. So that's next segment.
Yeah. That's another
Up
another
next.
show.
All right. Khalid, thanks so much, man. You're the best. And I'll be listening when you and my co-host do your other Up Next.
Yes, sir. Thanks, brother. Peace.
All right. Thank you, man.
Okay.
All right.
All right. That was great.
Say that again.
What can we hear up next? When is your next segment?
Probably next week. I'm we'll let him go on vacation. Let Khalid go on vacation. Wind down from the long AAU season, and then we'll get back up on it. And more interviews with some up and coming kids and their parents, and see how they are dealing with this this mad AAU industry pretty much.
Yeah, man, I can't wait. So here's the thing before we sign off. 10 years from now, what do you think we'll be saying about one or both of your two kids in this space, in ideal world?
Oh man, I don't want to put any pressure on the kids.
Playing Wimbledon or
exactly. But I almost kind of look at it like, I love sports. So obviously I'm going to introduce them to the things I love to do. And if they develop a love for it, great. And try to put them around the right coaches, because I think that's huge. I don't think I had great coaching growing up, because my parents didn't care about, they didn't care about the sports stuff. They were like, whatever, so, and they didn't know, they didn't have the insight that I have on it. So I would at least put my kids around, try to put them around the better coaches, give them a better chance. But it's almost like what we've talked about in the past, if a Division III, if you can, they don't, it's not technically a scholarship, but if you can get your Division III college paid for through that, that's great. I mean, are you kidding me? I mean, and if you love playing that sport, that's fine. Anything other than that would be
a better deal.
Gravy. Yeah.
That's probably a better deal. You get for a great solid school.
Exactly.
Your job is not it's not a job.
Right.
So
right.
Yeah. Well, it's been great, man. There's stuff we didn't touch a lot of stuff, but we'll do that next year. We'll still next week we'll touch Barkley.
Saquon. Yeah, that he has until Saquon Barkley and the Giants at a contract stalemate. They have until Monday, I think, to come to an agreement before they can franchise tag him, and then he'll have to decide whether he wants to hold out or whatever. So we can touch base on that next week. We'll see what happens. The other thing was the Wimbledon. Chris Eubanks, black guy, 6'7", came out of nowhere. Really, I think he was barely in the top 100, but I've noticed him the past few Grand Slams. Playing well in the first round or so, kind of intriguing. And then this Wimbledon, he broke out, gets to the quarterfinals, became like a darling of Wimbledon. They all loved him. So he'll be a good story to follow. He lost to Medvedev in the quarterfinal in 5 sets, but he'll be a good story this upcoming U.S. Open, which is next month. So that'll be interesting. Yeah,
we'll jump on that. I think we'll be at that. I think we're approved for not Wimbledon, but the U.S. Open.
Yes.
So we'll with U.S. Open, we've got Jets camp with the whole Aaron Rodgers drama.
Did you hear that they're going to be on HBO's Hard Knocks? Did you hear that?
I know.
We should show up to the practices just to get on HBO, man.
I know, just for that. Then have Bros Pod, We got to do that. Put one of those things on the microphone, so when you put it up there, Bros Pod. You know,
Yeah, that can't be too hard. We got to figure that out.
Shameless whores, man. That's kind of what you have to become. Shameless whores. You know.
No question.
All right, man. With that, listen, everybody. Thanks again for listening. You're a great audience, and we will see you next week. Stay vigilant. Register to vote.
Yes, we're brought to you by Bet Online. Don't forget that.
Yeah, brought to you by Bet
Online. Subscribe to us on at Bros Pod on Twitter, Instagram. You know, we got this new Threads. You heard about that, right? Threads.
Yeah, I actually
over
signed up for Threads.
Good. Let's put Twitter out of business. That'd be great.
Yeah.
And
YouTube. We're cheering for a multi-billionaire against another multi-billionaire.
That's true. That is a problem.
But that's okay. Let's.
Well, one of them is slightly better than the other one. I think. Yeah, right now.
But can you keep the morons who have made the other one awful? Can you keep them from making this awful?
Probably not.
Yeah, but anyway.
that's what they're here to do. You know, make things awful.
Yeah.
You know. So and subscribe to us on YouTube so you can watch the show live at Bros Pod on YouTube, and like and subscribe to the channel. That'd be great.
That would be wonderful.